Good evening and welcome to this edition of Memory Lane. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me this evening is co-host Dennis Brown. We do have Richard and Robert Coldrun, and hopefully we'll be joined by Rick Richardson. Tonight we will be talking about the legendary Sheldon Bradshaw, who unfortunately passed away last week. We remember Sheldon as a gentle giant. These gentlemen had the opportunity to play with him, play against him. Let me start with you, Dennis, because as a youngster coming through, seeing a stature of someone like Sheldon Bradshaw, what were your initial thoughts as a young man, possibly having to go against this man at some point in time before he retired?
Well, I never really, but once watching him in Somerset, I never. Good night, everybody. Good night, guys. I never really thought about playing against him. I always, coming out watching him playing when he was playing with Randy Orton and Wally Smith and those guys, my desire was to always play with him. And, I always looked at Beef as like a beast because Beef was like, he was chiseled, man. Unbelievable. Like the guy, he was so
embarrassingly just you kept your shirt on. Even when I thought I looked good.
We thought we looked good, but when Beef came around, man, you put the towel up and everything.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous.
It was a pleasure to watch Beef. When I was a youngster coming to Somerset, and even, it was a pleasure to play with him when I first got into the national team. We went to the CAC games. I think Richard and Robert were there too, where we got to the semi-finals.
Yes.
We lost to Mexico in the last seconds.
On my birthday.
Oh, wow.
On my birthday.
Semi-finals of the CAC games. We ended up coming fourth. You know what I mean? But Beef to me was, one of the best keepers that Bermuda's produced, really.
I think so.
And of course,
I totally
go ahead, Robert.
No, I say I concur with what Dennis just mentioned. I was thinking today about the goalkeepers I played with. I played with quite a few very good goalkeepers. I mean, Sam Newsom at North Village and at the hotels, at Kenny Iris. You probably don't remember him. He was in my junior team. He was a brilliant goalkeeper. On West in the national team, another very good goalkeeper. Harold Davis in the national team, and Bully was right there. He had some definite attributes that. No, first of all, he was tall, so he had the ability to do more in the air than most. But what I like most about Sheldon, besides being a really good goalkeeper, he was a really good guy. He was a tremendous guy. I remember my first year coaching. The year we tried to get Dennis, and we're not going to get this shit this time. Bully. We had a guy named Richard James, a friend of Richard and I. He was a trainer. And,
yes,
Richard. Yeah, he was brutal, and I was the coach, so I used to stay on the sidelines to let him do his thing. It was one of the benefits of being a coach, you didn't have to do physical sessions. But Sheldon came running to me and says, "Hey, Robert, I'm the goalkeeper. Do I have to do this physical stuff?" I said, "Yeah, Sheldon, you're gonna have to. We're gonna rely on you this year, so you're gonna have to, do your part." He looked at me. That rather menacing look at you can do what you want. You do your thing, right? You do you, and we'll be okay. What a great guy, just a great guy.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks, gentlemen, for having me on again tonight, and I want to send out my condolences to Sheldon's family. Didn't get to meet a lot of them, but if they're anything like him, then they had to be good people, or have to be good people. Like Robert was saying, Sheldon for me was one of the nicest people I've met in football. Really, seriously. And his physique that we were just talking about belied his temperament, because he, as Dennis mentioned, he had the body of a warrior, but he had the temperament of a monk. He was so calm. And I'm just touching on what Robert said as well about height. He was the first goalkeeper I played with that was over 6 foot, right? So it made it easier. When I said made it easier, it gave me more confidence, because you had a lot of goalkeepers that were incredibly good and agile, but I was always concerned about balls to the box, particularly in international games. and you didn't have to worry about that with Sheldon. I guess the other thing is I heard about Sheldon when I was in primary school at Prospect Primary, and he would have been at Crawford now, Cedar Bridge, and I kept hearing the name Bully Beef, and I'm thinking Bully Beef. I would want to meet this guy, and then I think later in life I realized, and I'm not sure if there was any connection, but Bully Beef is corned beef, so I'm assuming he liked corned beef. I wanted to believe that's what it was.
It's interesting to find out how he did get that name.
Well, it's kind of lean, isn't it? Right? I mean, I don't think it's a fatty meat, but yeah, no, he was a great guy to play for. I only played with him 1 year in the club level, and that was at Vasco, and we won 2 trophies that year. Somerset won the league. You let Dennison come here. I
thought
I threw Dennis in there. Somerset won the league. I thought I threw in there before you did. And he was our most valuable player. And I think the measure of the man is he never actually believed that he was our most valuable player. Rob and I had to say him 100 times at night. No, seriously, you have the trophy because you earned it. And he did. He had an amazing season. And like Robert talked about the work that he did with Richard James. I mean, he worked hard. And he would tell you it's the hardest work he's ever done. And I don't know if that's true, but he did a lot of work and it showed on the field. The guy had an amazing season. And of course, I played with him at the national level as well. But I really got to know him playing that year with Vasco. And I played in front of him. I played center half, didn't really want to. Dennis didn't come, so I had to. That was my last season in football. And again, I enjoyed it tremendously because the guy, he was behind me. And, sometimes I look back and I thought, is he still there? I'm used to goalkeepers like shouting, like, calm down.
Right.
And this, seriously, calm down. You're trying to be calm. And the goalkeeper's behind you shout out instruction. Bully never did that. But when he did, you just put up your hand, sorry. Because he didn't normally do it. But when he had choice words for you, chances are you deserved it. But what a great guy. I mean, an amazing guy. When I heard that he died, I mean, seriously, I had a tear in my eye because the guy was just, again, I didn't have a close relationship, but the relationship I had with him, I bonded, and I really enjoyed it. It was an incredible year, and I thought this guy's an incredible guy, and I'm just sad to see that he's gone.
Well, we're joined now by Rick Richardson. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening.
Hey, Rick.
How you doing, Rick?
We're here discussing the life of Sheldon Bradshaw. What was your first interaction with Sheldon in the sport?
Well, if I go back through some time, I had encounters with Sheldon / Bully Beef. First, I used to go up to Somerset, and Sheldon was involved in Ireland Island sort of youth teams and Somerset youth teams, and I used to engage because I was at Tech around the time, a bit with Gordon Chumney and a few others who were at Tech and who were in Somerset. Those were early encounters. Then go to the real encounters, I reckon, was when I was coaching at Warwick. First, coaching teams that were playing against his Somerset. And then, of course, we can talk a bit, get around to it, of when I had asked he and a few others at Somerset who had stellar careers, if you wish, at Somerset, to join us and help us put together a program at Warwick.
Rick, did you say it like that, or did you put your hand on it? Did you say it like that?
Yeah, good question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Say again?
Did you say it like that, or did you put your hand out to say, yeah, come to work and, we'll give you this and we'll give you that?
Well,
no.
I'm listening, Rick.
When you say that, you should say, speak right into this pocket.
Thank you, Rick. I didn't want to say that.
Geez,
But it's funny. It's funny. The person that asked that was almost lured away from Somerset as well by these two gentlemen sitting next to him.
No. Correction, one person.
Well, okay, one person, at least one.
Hey,
I was going.
what can I tell you?
Oh yeah.
I was
Don't get me
going.
wrong, I quietly supported it.
If it wasn't for Mama, I'd have been. If it wasn't for Mama, I would have been at Vasco. If it wasn't for Mama.
Earl Basin had asked that question, I could understand it, Dennis.
Sorry. The mistake I made, I should have called your mom first.
Exactly. You gotta believe it.
But I remember my first encounter with Sheldon. He was playing in a game at Wellington Oval. He was in goal. I was a young man sitting behind the goal and so forth. He was always trying to ensure that, although he was in the game, if anybody was asking him questions, he was always willing to share information. And that's what I admire about him, because the fact that he could talk to these little guys behind the goal, but still pay attention to what's going on, in and around him. And as you guys have said, you've never seen him flustered.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's
No.
not necessarily true. There have been one or two cases, but it's not. This is not the forum for that.
Well, like everyone, they have their moments.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, absolutely.
You didn't want to cross it, Mick. You didn't want to cross it.
No. You say flustered. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was a quick story. When I took over at Vasco, Sheldon actually he had a bit of an altercation. I don't think it was an altercation over football. I think maybe him and the late Carla Papa played cards and somebody didn't win. I don't know. That's a joke. A bad joke. The point was, Sheldon was about to be suspended for a very long time. And we miraculously missed the date of the hearing. The FA didn't check the record. Sheldon ended up playing. And it was interesting because we were shopping around looking for a goalkeeper. And we ended up with Dwayne Bean. Yeah. And I remember the final we played against you, the second leg in the WE. Sheldon had burned his hands, I think, industrial accident, dealing with acid, I believe. And every player was suggesting to me that I still should play him. The guy couldn't even put on his glove to catch the ball. We're going to play Sheldon. He can see the ball with his feet. And Bean's over there looking at me like, it's okay, you can play Sheldon, I'm fine. He really didn't want to play the game. It's very clear. And Sheldon came to me and he says, I can't play. I cannot play. I said, Sheldon, I wasn't going to play. But you need to convince this guy over here, talking about Beanie, that he actually is going to be able to play the game today. So he spent a good amount of time with Richard and Jamesy convincing him that he was going to be fine. And I guess I say all that to say that it kind of reminds me of when we were in Colombia in the CAC games. We won it once about that time. Maybe because you didn't go, Dennis, I'm not sure. But anyway.
Yeah, I didn't go on that one.
Yeah. But Sheldon started off as being, actually Harold, the late Harold Madeira started off being the number one goalkeeper. And Sheldon took over before the tournament started. Ultimately, Arnold West was the goalkeeper that played the majority of the games. What I remembered about Sheldon was the support that he gave Arnold and the rest of the players, throughout the tournament. Well, a guy that actually probably thought he should have played was extremely supportive, and those type of things, when you have a small group of individuals trying to win something, it's just so helpful. But it just, to me, sums up his personality.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Dennis, you're up.
Okay.
This year, Labor Day will be celebrated on Monday, the 6th of September, traditionally to honor the progress and the courage of the labor movement from the late 19th century to the present day. To say the treatment of workers by their employers was unfair back then is a gross understatement. Many wrongs have been righted at great personal cost. This year, we want to celebrate the outstanding work of our frontline health professionals and volunteers who labored selflessly under the gathering threat of COVID-19 ever in harm's way. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
So question to Rick. What were some memorable games that you remember these playing? I remember a memorable game I saw Somerset play against Warwick at Devonshire Rack one night when Somerset brought back Clyde Best and Warwick had them 3-0. And Somerset ended up winning 4-3. I think Clyde Best got like a hat trick or something like that. That was probably one of my most. And Bully Beef was in goal too. So I remember that guy, Eric. That's my most memorable.
So that I remember that. I also remember that I was almost encouraging Bully Beef to stay away from Bunny, meaning pre-game, game's getting ready to start. Bunny Best is coming around. You know, he's talking. Hey, what's up, Beef? You know, and we hadn't seen Bunny for a while, but the word was already out that he struck the ball like a bugle. He could be anywhere on the pitch. He lined up the goal. So Beef looked like he was a bit concerned about that. So Bunny was walking around, and I looked at the whole psychology of it all. You know, we had X number of players who I believe could compete, and our trump card was Bully Beef. So our bit was, Beef, don't let this guy score, right? So Bunny comes just before the game, and he walked the full length, and he's talking to Beef and whispering a bit. And I said, well, what the heck is the guy talking about at this stage, you know? So I could see both Beef shaking his head, never going to happen, so to speak. So Bunny was basically, afterwards, I learned that he was like, look, we don't have to bet, but this is a friendly, I score. I'm telling you, you said Bunny got a hat trick. I mean, I wasn't even counting that. I was so distraught and distressed that when he really decided to get serious, he looked straight down the pitch at Beef and fired. It looked like Beef was mesmerized. Ball was in the back of the net. And I was one of those demonstrative coaches. I just walked up and down. I thought, no, this can't be happening. Yeah, can't be happening. Bully Beef, I told you, like this discussion stuff, out. So half time, Beef was saying, look, don't worry. You know, don't worry. Look, Rick, I told you. You know, in Somerset, this is not Somerset Beef. It's Somerset. We just stay cool. This is whatever the game plan is. But look, things are going wrong. I mean, Bunny Best is starting to gain momentum. And after that, the rest was history, Dennis. I mean, but I remember the discussion, Bunny with that look, and basically it was like, I'm coming. And Beef, knowing how potent he was, I mean, that was one of the few times I've seen something like that get to Bully Beef. And that wasn't a good memory. Yeah, that wasn't a good memory. But Beef, you know, it gives me the opportunity to say that he brought a different level to our club. We had youngsters coming through like Derek Scott. We had a few. And then I'll play when I feel like it, Al James, who, you know, was really beast, but not in the form of a Randy Horton. Randy came to take you apart every game. Al was, today I'm going to play, next week not. So Beef was trying to tell us this, give us this consistency. You know, you can't just give a club a winning mentality. It takes time. You guys will know that. And so he brought that to us, and he helped us shape what was just some talented, a half a dozen talented players and other squad players. And then we went to try to poach a few others who were in the advanced stages of their careers, but from Somerset, but they brought some good things to us. But Beef, I'm not going to come out totally with it, Dennis, but Beef was calming even in the storm. Okay, that's what I remember. And I heard, we didn't quite refer to him as Geraldine, because it really got to him. He went up not just to protect, but to let you know he was going up.
Sure.
And so that piece we saw of Beef. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that firsthand because it's two goalkeepers when I was like 16 that I had physical encounters with, like in a 50-50. One was Sam Newsom, who told me, "Welcome to the first division," and he looked at me with the broad. And the other was Bully Beef, who said, "Don't come back in here, Mick." You know what I mean? He absolutely stung me. And I was bullheaded, but not that I wasn't stupid. I wasn't good back then to Bully Beef. You know what I mean? So like you said, he lets you know, like if you're coming in his area, he's gonna sting you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how it was.
Yeah, we had a few players around, like I remember, I think it was still around the same time, Ellie Wilson. Now, Ellie was tough, and he was fit, and he did martial arts, so he used to try to intimidate and beat. I said, "Beef, like this guy's running right at you." He said, "Don't worry, it's gonna go wrong one point." And I said, "Look, we could afford to have him sent off." So I was saying, "Beef, just don't do anything." He said, "Rick, this is, you let me take care of this." And boy, and as crazy as Ali was, and I say crazy because in a game he would also try to intimidate keeper or defender. And Bully Beef, that day we played them. I can't remember which team he was playing for, but we played at Police Field, and Bully sent him a message. So I'm sure they were wondering what happened to Ali, the demonstrative. Ali used to almost go up by the keeper doing some of his martial arts poses, and Bully Beef sent him back where he was a striker playing almost out of the midfield. So I recall that, and anybody who knew Ellie knew that Ellie Wilson was one tough cookie, and he had a reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but police sent him back where my guys on the bench was saying, "What, Ellie playing midfield?" I said, "No, well, we sent him here." Yeah. So he was very clean and immaculate, and came across as this, very by the book type guy. But if you really set out to injure him, he was always mindful that he didn't want to get injured. He was a picture of health and strength, and really tried like everybody else to make sure he avoided getting injured. And sometimes he took, shall I say, protective measures. Yeah.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sheldon for me was again. I'm sorry. Did I continue?
Okay.
Yeah. I was saying. Starting to say that Sheldon, as I mentioned before, he was he played for me when I first coached my first year, and at 27, 28, I think I was. Sometimes players don't really listen to everything you have to say. I would say even at 45, they don't listen to you. I mean, I'm just being honest. Dennis, you know that.
Yep.
You know that as well. But Sheldon was one of those guys that would kind of hush a room. So I'm trying to get a point across, maybe not as well as I probably should have. And he's the only guy that I didn't challenge when he said, "Well, Robert's trying to say," and I said it. I'm not trying to say anything, but I laughed at it. So what Robert's trying to say is such and such, and the room just went quiet. And I said to him after the game, we played, and he came back and said, "I'm going to have to do this every week, and I'm going to need you to kind of have that same comment." And he did do it every week, but when I needed him to intervene, to be the senior player, in the room, the guy that everyone else listened to, he was there. And I, for that reason, and for not a lot of other reasons, Sheldon was probably one of the best players overall that I ever coached, because besides what he did on the field, what he did off the field was pretty momentous. He was very, very supportive, and we didn't have to be. I mean, Sheldon, I looked today, and I think Sheldon was in his 73rd year, right? That will make him 7 years older than me. So I'm 27, 28. Sheldon's 35, and you don't always get that respect. And you know, you guys don't talk. Right? It's not automatic that people look down at you at your age and say, you don't talk about it. Maybe you didn't. But Sheldon was the guy that was, you're the coach, you're in charge, and we're going to respect the fact that the club assigned you to coach the team this year. And it was extremely helpful. It was extremely important for me and Richard as assistant coach to have someone like Sheldon in your corner and assisting you when the situation's a calming voice and assertive voice. He was that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing you have someone of that stature in goal, how calming is it to know that you have all that ability so you can actually feel free enough to kind of play fluent football as a coach, Rick?
I lost a bit of that. You were saying knowing you have a person of that ability.
Yeah. So how it would allow your team to play flowing football, knowing that if it breaks down, you still got this very well respected and talented goalkeeper to try and keep out the opponents.
So if I reflect on it, we were trying to build something at a club that was primarily interested or put a lot of emphasis on cricket, on billiards, on snooker, and it had a fairly new youth program, and it wasn't like one of the established football clubs. So it was more than playing that brand of football. It was structure. It was half time when, if you have a club that is trying to make its way, generally at halftime, you really need to revive things. So you walk into a dressing room and the talkers are in there first. And if things are not going well, they have all the answers and they're talking. And I'd be trying to get people's attention. Beef would be quietly to the side, and then he would get up and scratch his head a bit and say, "Hey, look, this is not the way." You know what I mean? And he brought them over to a halftime meeting, so I was able at least to give my analysis and say how we're going to get back into this game. And he helped us to structure a team. And as I mentioned, we had convinced a few people to come there. Terry Green at the time had come from Village. Hammer Simmons was coming in. And we had our own Bom LaBelle in Derek Scott. And our own Randy Horton of Forts in Old James, who, if he really decided to play, could be a destroyer. And so Beef was trying to get us, don't try to play this total football. We don't have.
Cut off.
Okay, he's cut out. He'll come back. Let's take another quick commercial break. But yeah, maybe come back, Richard. How comfortable were you around Sheldon when you played? But you can answer that when we come back. We'll be right back.
Nuco is a company impressively dedicated to the production of coconut concoctions. Their motto is coconuts for life, and however that resonates, it seems to have done the trick for vegan snack lovers. Nuco uses 3 ingredients in their wraps: pure organic and GMO-free coconut meat, coconut water, and unrefined virgin coconut oil. Nuco extols them as the all-natural alternative to bread and tortillas. This month we're featuring gluten-free Nuco organic coconut wraps in a 5-pack. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Yeah, Richard, that question again. How comfortable were you when you were playing and he was in the team with you?
Well, okay, so I'll put it this way. Playing the center half, and I played center half a few times, well, often, not all the time, it's Vasco. I really wasn't a center half, I was a defensive midfield player that played left back, right back, you name it. Anyway, just throwing it on, just in case Pepe's listening. Sorry, Pepe, sorry. But yeah, no, it has a major impact, and Dennis would definitely tell you this is center half. If you're playing in front of a goalkeeper that builds confidence, then you tend to do things a little more freely. In other words, you may take some extra chances. You may go forward a bit more. You won't just clear the ball. You play it wide. You play it out. If you've got a goalkeeper behind you that you don't trust, you tend to. I did anyway. I think this is pretty much the case with most center halves. You didn't play as fluid or as freely. You were a little concerned about the balls into the box. You were concerned about shots on goal. And with Bully, I never had those concerns. I didn't. I just didn't. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think the biggest benefit for me having Bully behind me, he was the tallest goalkeeper I'd ever played with.
Right.
And that may seem simple to some people, but it's important. Particularly if you're playing against a team like Somerset that had 6'2" center forwards. You know what I mean? Or even playing against Al James when Al was aggressive, almost impossible to stop in the air when he was aggressive.
Yeah.
I played against Devonshire Coles as not a big fella, but jumping with what was his name? Albert Dillon, thank you. Was work. And so if you knew that you had a goalkeeper behind you and the ball was put in the box and he's going to come and get it, again, you took a bit more chances. When I played with smaller goalkeepers, then I was forced to do things differently, and you have to, or you're just not clever if you don't. So that was the benefit of playing with Sheldon, and he was commanding in the end. You know what I mean? He didn't just come; he came and cleared. And so when he said goalkeeper, you should get out of the way.
Yeah. Evasive action.
No, because he will take you the ball, everything. That happened to me once. You didn't have to say it anymore, right? But again, but here's when you juxtapose that with playing a 5'8" goalkeeper, when your goalkeeper comes and says goalkeeper, you still want to try to head the ball, right?
Yeah.
There's no concern that he's not going to make it, and often they didn't. So that was the biggest difference. It was he instilled confidence in you as a center half to do things a bit more freely, and I felt more comfortable with him behind you than playing with a lot of goalkeepers.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, very interesting. If I can piggyback on that, sorry guys, I lost the feed earlier.
No problem.
If I can piggyback on that, when you had people like Ricky Hill.
Oh, Ricky Hill, yes.
Who could almost hang there, climbing and hanging. Bully Beef, Sheldon, was very much aware of that and wanted everybody to make way for him because he was going to claim it. Unless a keeper, the ball's in the net. When Ricky Hill got in the box and the ball was up, and we spoke of that many times. Randy Horton, even when we planned for it with Bully, he seemed to still score against us. I'm not sure whether that, Dennis, was psychological or not, but that was one of the things that I knew, that Sheldon was able to go up with those guys who were amazing with the headers, like Ricky Hill. And if you recall Ricky, it was almost majestically going up. His timing was amazing. And Sheldon would say, I don't want everybody trying to defend this bit with Ricky, because I need to be able to get a clear line where I can claim the ball.
Right.
I don't need my own men impeding.
Yeah. Good point.
That
No,
is-
it's, oh, sure. Yeah.
Fair.
No, go ahead.
And Rick, you had a young Mike Deal playing for Warwick at that time, right? In front of
Yes.
Bully. Because I remember your team. You had a good little nucleus. I always remember a guy like Hammer. I always thought that Hammer was probably one of the most underrated players in Bermuda. He was a good mover, a good guy to move off the ball. He was, you know what I mean? Hammer to me was one of the most underrated players in Bermuda history. Really, Hammer and Al Castle. There's two guys, you know what I mean? Unsung heroes for Village and Warwick. Really.
Yeah, indeed. And Hammer left the club and came back at a good time when we were building like that. He could strike the ball cleanly without indicating that that's right. And that's it. Very little backward.
Yeah.
And the next time you know the ball's coming at you or in the goal.
Yeah.
Hammer suffered a bad injury. And I think that's what impeded him in his latter years of playing. But he still came back and played very well. But you're right. We had Mike Dill, who Mike was quick, just like his brother Cal Dill. Those Dills were quick, so he could recover. And what we lost in reading the game at that time, he made up for because his recovery.
Yeah, he's dropped out of the game. Yeah. We're getting back.
If I could, go ahead. I'm sorry. If I could chime in about Hammer, I think we mentioned it the last time we were on your show. We played against Hammer when we were junior football players. They played for PHC's number 2 team. And in the first game we played, we won the game by about 6 or 7 goals. And he scored 2 goals. I think it was like 7-2. 2 of the greatest goals you would see for a 15, 16-year-old kid. And we approached him. We literally approached him right after that game. We literally said, if you're interested, we would like to have you at North Village next year. And he did. He came to play for our junior team for 2 years. And this guy scored like 30-something goals each year. And it was at that point we started to win just about everything. Of course, you grew up a bit as well. But what he did, I think one of the challenges that Hammer had breaking into an North Village team was still at a time where you want the center forwards to be extremely fast. For me, Hammer wasn't blessed with speed, but what he was blessed was a quick mind and his ability to play amongst players because he had a great touch. And for me and for Robert playing the midfield, playing with this guy, you could always find him and get back. And again, anywhere within 25 yards, chances are, if it's a shot on goal, it's a goal. So I'd agree with you when you say he's underrated. He was vastly underrated. I mean this sincerely. I really appreciated Hammer Simmons, the football player.
Yeah.
We tried desperately. I tried desperately, which is not going to agree to my tactics, but I tried
I
desperately.
made no partners.
Get Hammer to come over to Tabasco when I was coaching. He was actually not really playing much for North Village, and I kept watching. I didn't wonder why. I just watched him and thought, if you want to play, you will play. And it's fine. I'm not training that much. He said, well, you train once a week, you'll still play. And the reason I said that is because Hammer had some of the things that you talked about, Richard, and the things you talked about with. This guy's ability to shoot from a backlift that was nothing was brilliant. He would turn you on one side and shoot behind you with his left or right foot in. Like, I'm a United fan, like Mason Greenwood, the best player in the world. But anyway, that's another story. Hammer could score goals from any angle. And one of the things I think you talk about underrated, the guy was brilliant in the air. He really was very good running, and his technique was proper. He was a proper football player. His control was clean. His movement away from defenders, dropping the ball back into a midfield. For me, he was a midfield player's dream because we were used to playing, a touch game. The only person that ran away from us in the junior team would have been punching. I mean, let him do because he could do whatever he wanted to. But Hammer was that guy that dropped off the center half and came and played the ball back to people like Richard and I, David Spragus, and everything used is deceased. Our game was slower, and we needed a touch player like Hammer to be able to, to progress up the field gradually so we can get in around the goal, score goals. Especially we're smaller. And so we were beating teams not by outrunning them, except not by being more physical, but by movement and passing. You need a focus point, a target player. And Hammer was all of those things. He wasn't a classic stand up your back toward a defender. He was a guy that ran angles, ran channels and dropped the ball back and then tried to run away from him. So I know this is about Bully, but Sheldon, Hammer was a part of. I thought, Rick, this seemed like it's going off again. A pretty good war team. I mean, they always gave me off for this headache, a massive headache. But beyond Al James and Sheldon and Hammer, Derek Scott, David Lovell, another pretty good.
Didn't they have Portland Fabric as well? Wasn't he up front too? Another early
period.
I'm going to try to say a few things, guys, and maybe my somehow my internet is popping in and out. But picking up on what you said about Hammer, one of the things Bully Beef noted that in his distribution, because Bully could throw the ball out to feet also, was that he trusted Hammer to take the ball in with one motion and turn and move away with it. And when I asked him, well, why are you just playing him? This doesn't feel like balance. And he said, I don't want the ball to come right back at me. And so he threw it to feet. Hammer was able to swivel, take it with one go, and he was very deceptive in how he moved with the ball. So that's one thing that Bully, I was learning a few things as a coach as I was going along, and I was talking the buzzwords like balance and with an attack, and Beef says, hold it. If we want to play this kind of football, first we got to keep the ball, and Hammer will keep the ball. And Hammer, I saw him do it over and over again. With one throw, Beef would throw the ball out to him. He would take in one go, swivel, and he was off. So Bully Beef brought a lot of that basic logic to the club, and actually allowed us to put together a football team.
I was just going to ask that. What type of person was he off the field around the team? Because with his experience and playing for so long, once he gets into the team, he becomes the senior player. So what was he like around the team, off the field side? Anyone can take that.
For me, Sheldon was he was a mature guy, right? So again, he was older than us, and so he brought a level of maturity that was required, I think, for a pretty youngish team that we played with. In the national team, he was, again, I remember we were playing. We beat Trinidad in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, quarterfinals, and we were coming back and. But George and Willie started singing this song, 16 bottles of beer or something, I can't remember. And I thought, this is a lame song, man. After about 3 minutes, I got into it. But what I recognized was that the Somerset players, and the older players in the team that were there, they're used to success. And part of the success was camaraderie. And they always talked about, as a national school player, we were a team, we were a country. We weren't a bunch of players come from different teams. We're now Bermuda, traveling together, playing against countries that want to beat us. And Sheldon brought a degree of camaraderie and maturity to the group that was very helpful for a younger player like myself. Because in that team, I was like 21, 22, and it was my first tour. And I look to him and George, and again, the Somerset guys, really, I guess success breeds that. I'm making an assumption here. But they were, George and Willie was some for short, and very level-headed in terms of the way they presented themselves on the team, and it was helpful, very helpful.
And to reiterate that, and what Richard said earlier about Beef's demeanor, he reminded me so much of George Brankman, because those guys basically led by example. You didn't hear a lot of on the pitch. Like if they had to tell you something, they'll come up to you, whatever, blah blah blah. You wouldn't hear them shouting. You know, I knew personally I had a big mouth. You know, I had a big mouth, so you would hear me from the back to the front. But George wasn't like that. Bully Beef wasn't like that. You know, Bully had to tell you something. He'll pull you aside, you know, on the pitch, you know, to reassure you, to give you confidence. Like Richard said, I remember, you know, playing in, I think were we in Venezuela or Cuba? Venezuela? Did we go to that CAC, guys?
I wasn't there.
I
I
didn't
retired the
make
year
that
before.
Okay,
I retired the year before. It was Venezuela. Yeah.
okay.
Cuba. We went to Cuba.
We went to Cuba.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember, you know, because that was my basically first tournament, and you know, I was, you know, nervous as ever, you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, having somebody around like him behind you to reassure you that, you know what I mean, because I mean, everybody who has played international level will tell you, you know, it's like night and day between local football and international football. You know what I mean? So, and then I actually played right back in that tournament, and I'm not afraid to say I was lost out there, because especially if you have a winger like Courage Bell who don't defend, and you got two maximum, you know what I mean? So you have to grow up quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But guys like Bully Beef behind you to reassure you, and you know, it's more comfortable in the second half than it was in the first half. You know what I mean? But Bully Beef was somebody to always keep. He always stayed level-headed, like never got on the pitch anyway. To me, he never got flustered unless it was Pee Wee Crocker, because Pee Wee seemed to bring everything out of everybody. God bless his soul. You know what I mean? But Bully was yeah. He brought it out of me too. Trust me. He was my boss in the prison, but once he refereed my games, he always brought it out of me. But Bully Beef to me was, you know, a special guy, somebody who I grew up watching in Somerset and got to play with him, not for Somerset but for the national team, and he was a special guy to me.
I'm sorry, like Robert would mention many times the quiet words that George Brankman would whisper into his ear. Robert groomed with George a lot when they traveled the national team. But I remember Bully saying the same thing to you when I was a young player in the national team. And so you're eager, you know what I mean? You're walking around the complex, and you're playing 6 games in 24 days if you get that far. You're playing every 4 days.
Yeah.
And saying stuff like, "Get off your feet, man. Seriously, go lie down." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And it was right. It was good information.
Yeah.
Because you knew, and he knew, having been there enough times, you had to get off your feet. You need to get rest, because in another couple of days you're playing again. And again, as you would also know, one of the challenges you had in some of these games, Pan American games and CAC games, it was that you rarely got a good meal. Particularly the Pan American games, by the time they let you get in line, even though our letter was B, so we should have been the front, we ate last because all the Americans, the Canadians, the Americans, the Cubans fought for it. And so we ended up with scraps. And so on top of you're being tired, the nutrition factor was an issue. You know what I mean? You're not getting proper calories, you're not carbohydrates. And so these guys, and they were aware of it, and they would just say stuff like that. What do you say? Yeah, just go lie down. Just get some rest. You need to get some rest. And you know, you hear it enough times, you follow through on it. It's good advice. So they gave good advice.
Yeah.
They're mature.
We're gonna take another commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more about Sheldon Bradshaw. We'll be right back.
This year, Labor Day will be celebrated on Monday, the 6th of September, traditionally to honor the progress and the courage of the labor movement from the late 19th century to the present day. To say the treatment of workers by their employers was unfair back then is a gross understatement. Many wrongs have been righted at great personal cost. This year we want to celebrate the outstanding work of our frontline health professionals and volunteers who labored selflessly under the gathering threat of COVID-19 ever in harm's way. Lindo, why go anyplace else?
Welcome back. Rick, I'm going to ask you, do you remember the first game that Bully played with you at work?
The games were coming fast and furious, so I don't remember the first game. Not specifically, but I do remember when he did play with us, we looked like a team. That's what I remember. We looked and played like a team. I knew then we could compete, because that's what we were looking to do. He, from the first game, he brought that stability and ability to compete. I'll say quickly also in that one of the things that Sheldon brought to the team was that we had players who, if they got a tiny knock, like they were fearful of the next game anyhow. If we were playing Village, if we were playing Somerset, the guy gets a little knock, and hey, we would have a talk and say, look, my arm has been ailing me for whatever, and I'm playing. So you're playing. That I found, people may not know it, but there are some players that, depending on the games, they almost pick their games, that they would disappear. And it would be sounding legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
He helped us to get rid of that because he was there. Rain, blow, or shine. But that's what I remember from the first game, not the specifics of it, but we felt like we could compete.
Well, just to reiterate what Robert mentioned earlier in the show about Sheldon, we played in the second round of, I think it was the Dudley Eve final against Somerset. And was up at Somerset. I remember coming into the changing room, and Sheldon was there with his hands bandaged, and he wanted to play. And we found out that he had an accident on the job. It's an industrial accident. I believe it was acid. And again, his hands were wrapped with bandage, and he was looking like he wanted to play. With him, you can't play. But this is the type of guy he was. Look at that team. There it is.
Yeah, that's the team that hurt my heart in the FC1.
That's a pretty good team.
That's a very good team.
Jeez. Wow.
Experience right there, boy.
That is a pretty good team. Oh, wow. I haven't seen this picture in a while.
Yeah, my mate said it.
Damn, okay. That was a team. Yeah, that was a good team.
Yeah,
that was a really good team.
Very good team.
Yeah. A lot of gifts. Yes, sir.
Definitely. Dennis?
So, before we leave, I just want everybody to express, what beef meant to them, and then I'll say what I have to say.
Okay, I'll start because I'm probably the shortest. I've only played with Sheldon once at the club level, 1 year, and played with the national team a few times as well. For me, again, he was a man. Yeah, it was no question about it. At times you're in a club and amongst players that are boys, and they could be older, but they're boys. The mentality, but he was a man. He brought that to the table, and in doing so, he brought an extra bit of confidence, and like Robert mentioned, maturity, and it had a settling effect on some of the younger players, and it was you didn't find that a lot. I can tell you didn't find it often. When you did find it, you welcomed it and you appreciated it. And I appreciated that he brought that level of maturity and decency to the team. Because I think when it's all said and done, he, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, he's probably one of the nicest people I've ever met in football, and I believe that. And he had an impact on me. There's no question about it. 1 year, but he had an impact on me, and I was truly sorry to see that he had passed away.
Sheldon, for me, sorry, Ricky, I'll just
Yeah.
say real quick. He was an extremely honest and candid guy, and some people can't deal with it. For me, that is a blessing. I want people to tell me, in the right environment, exactly, how they feel about certain things I'm doing. And Sheldon was shy about that, but he was always mature and responsible in the way he responded to the things that was on his mind from a coach-player perspective. So I appreciated that, and I also appreciated the fact, and I said it earlier, that he had this maturity that it showed itself in a very profound way. Sheldon, as you guys know, didn't have to say much. He just had to be there. And sometimes guys say, "Why is Sheldon not talking?" But you felt his presence. And one of the things that I really respected about Sheldon was the fact that when you needed him, he was there. When you needed less of him,
Yes.
he was still there. He was that guy that knew when to talk, knew when to be a wallflower, but always when there was a battle, he was a warrior and he was going to compete. And you absolutely knew that he was never going to let you down. And that for me was indicative of the person he was, and certainly it flowed into the football field, and that's the way he played the game. So yeah, it's like Richard said, it brought a tear to my eye because I like Sheldon. He was one of the more genuine people that I've actually experienced in football. I say this last thing. I've met some of the most impressive and likable people in football. And I've met some people that, quite frankly, I would probably don't want to see again in life. And Sheldon certainly fell in the category of the most likable, most decent, most responsible individuals that I've ever come across. And playing for a number of clubs, I played for a few clubs, and Sheldon will always stand out as one of the best teammates I ever had.
Rick?
If I can get something in before my feed drops out. For me and the organization, he was a man of stature.
Yeah.
He understood what it took to sustain not just a program for that period, but he understood the whims of life. And I can say that with some surety. He was a man of stature. He had standards and never let them down. You would always get the best of Sheldon, whether he was injured, partially injured, he didn't let on. And that was enough to help our organization. Standard, sustainability, character. He brought all of that to the field, to the club, to the table.
And to me, I agree with every one of you, Richard, Robert, and Rick. And to me, one thing I remember about Bully is him pulling me aside when I first came into First Division. Although he wasn't playing for Somerset, he told me things that I needed to look out for. And back then, the older guys, you really listen to. Like not nowadays where you got little guys coming into the league and they think they know everything. Back then you listened to guys like George Bramer, you listened to the Dirt Simmonses and the Larry Hunts and Trix Richardsons and the Beefs. And one of the things that will always stay with me from Beef was how to take care of yourself, like take care of your body. Like, he always pointed people out. You don't want to go in that direction about taking care of your body, about alcohol and stuff like that. And well, one of the most important things he talked about was the girls. You know, that he say, oh, they could either make you or break you. You know what I mean? And that stayed with me, you know, throughout my career. You know, although I made a few mistakes here and there in that respect. And I always used to go back to him and say, yeah, I know what you're talking about now. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you know, he was a great example to you know up and coming players, and you know, he was just a pleasure to be around and to talk to. You know what I mean? So he really meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, I would like to end tonight's show by saying to the family and friends of Sheldon Bully Beef Bradshaw, you have our deepest condolences, and may he rest in peace. Thank you, gentlemen, for a night of remembering Sheldon Bully Beef Bradshaw. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi, guys.
Thanks.